Typical.
So easily done, but not if you know what you're doing. Final one. This one's tough. I'll be really impressed if you get this one. Who holds the drop goals in a career record?
I mean, if Eddie Hemmings, wouldn't you have you believe it any other way than it has to be Lee Briers? But I assume when drop goals were worth a higher value, that there was people who scored more than Lee Briers scored.
To be fair, no. They were the guy who holds the record. Pretty much, I think they were all 1-pointers.
Oh. I don't know. Joe Lydon? I don't know.
Norman Turley. He played for Warrington, Runcorn, Swinton, Blackpool, Rochdale, Barrow, Workington, Trafford and Whitehaven. And played from 73 to 92. Or, if you believe the RFL, he only played from 1980 to 91.
Right. So they missed off a good almost half his career.
Half his career, yeah. But again, easily done. You can have a bonus one if you want. There was a new error created on Saturday. What was it?
A new error created on Saturday?
So the RFL's website was right on this until Saturday, but then something happened that made it wrong.
Right, Saturday. What games were played on Saturday? I don't know. Something to do with Toulouse. I don't know.
Yeah.
They said they put something on saying it was the most points they scored in a game this season. Is that what was wrong?
No. Toulouse won, which means that they've won all of their league games this season. And they're only the second club ever to do that.
Oh, okay.
So previously Hull had did it in the 1978-79 Division 2 season. They won all 26 games. So the RFL need to update their website to take off that fact. But at the rate of progress, it might take a while. I'll drop them a note on it, but we'll see how long it takes.
I love how committed you are to these fact checking though. It's it really does keep me entertained, I've got to say. Well, one thing you get to have an honour of by being on the Super League pod, even after a close to 3-hour recording, is I know we're meant to be quick this week. There was 4 games we didn't really care about. Anyway, a recommendation. So do you have a recommendation for us?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Podcast related. And this will do nothing for all that we've been talking about on and off through the show. Because it won't be a surprise and it'll do nothing to change perceptions of me. So I can recommend these, but probably only if you're of a similar mindset to me. So the first one is a great podcast that the BBC do called More or Less.
Yes, I listened to that. Yeah.
Thought you might. So, essentially it's looking at the truth behind numbers quoted in the media and how real certain figures are. And it talks quite a lot about how data is used and the different ways that data can be presented. As a measure of the tone of it, last week they had on the 2018 Tax Personality of the Year. So if that isn't a definition of an oxymoron, I don't know what is. I can say that quite safely because I'm an accountant by profession, so I'm quite happy that there are tax people in the world because it gives me something to kind of point to and maybe pretend that there's people less interested than me.
Well, it is a good show. I listen to it too.
But yeah, interested in the context of that Mason Leno discussion because they were talking last week about how defining your terms around using data is very important. So when you talk about Leno's Super League record or top division record, That's not necessarily what's being quoted at the moment when people are chucking facts around about what he's done. So, it's interesting for people like me to hear that sort of stuff. The other one I was going to say is the price of football. So it talks about the money behind soccer, which again, as a finance person, that's quite interesting. But I think it's quite light-hearted actually, in the way he kind of approaches things. But I think rugby league can be quite insular in the way it thinks about itself and the way we kind of look at the sport. And it's really interesting when you hear football to people talking about soccer and finances and actually what some of the problems and challenges are and the negative vibe that you get around some of the sport that you maybe wouldn't think exists because, all's hunky-dory in the world of football if you're a rugby league fan, it seems sometimes. But there's some quite interesting perspective on things like fundings and how the sport is run. That's quite eye-opening, I think, if you're a rugby league fan who only talks and thinks rugby league.
Oh, so it's a podcast that I know it's a book. I didn't realise he did a podcast as well. The guy who wrote the book.
Yes, yeah. By twice a week as well. So it's quite hard keeping up with it, amongst other things. But yeah, and there's some interesting discussions on there, and it makes you. It's certainly made me think quite differently about maybe some of the challenges facing rugby league when they're talking about clubs in the Northwest. The Berries, the Oldhams of the world who've been struggling recently. And you kind of see that there's a bigger world that these rugby league clubs are operating in that's, having an impact on other sports organisations in what's obviously a much more financially, a whole different level from a financing point of view. But, when you hear some of those teams kind of struggling for different reasons, it puts things in perspective, I think, a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. I think sometimes the context around just the sort of debt to value ratio that you see in football clubs and stuff. When we worry about the similar thing in our sport, and then you look at what it can reach in, especially in some of the teams around Europe, in the top divisions around Europe, the amount of debt some of those clubs are carrying is remarkable. More than our entire sport's worth on all sides of the world. Yeah.
And reliance on broadcast income is something which has been quite a hot topic in rugby league recently, and obviously the hit that the clubs are taking on the back of the change funding. And you see what some of the soccer clubs are doing, where they're drawing down loans based on advance payments that they're expecting to get from future broadcast deals, and they're securing loans on the basis of future TV revenue. You see that really the numbers might be bigger, but they're in just as precarious a position. Relegation or a significant reduction in contract money from a broadcast point of view would have a major impact on a large number of clubs, which we maybe think is somehow a unique problem for rugby league at the moment, and that's not the case at all, I don't think.
No, and it sort of also tells you that if we did have just two or three super benefactors to our sport, then our sport is in a much sounder position than sports that have a much more mega money element to them. It's almost like it's easier to save something that's smaller sometimes, maybe, potentially. We'll see.
Yeah, so I think that's probably just reaffirmed people's perceptions as much as anything there. But I can recommend them too if you're looking to expand your podcast library. There's a good bit of interest in both of them.
Good stuff. Well, it's going to be the off season for us soon, so people can start catching up on other things come mid-October.
They won't have any space for any other podcast this week after this
no
marathon. So.
They won't. Yeah, and on that note, I think I'll save any recommendations I've got for next week, and I'll tell people a bit more about the trip I had to the Lake District, and no doubt the trip I had to North Wales by that point as well. It'll be me and I think Sarah next week. I think that's who's lined up on the slate. You can get in touch with us at Super League Pod on Twitter and Instagram. It's facebook.com/Super League Pod. You can email us superleaguepod@gmail.com. Superleaguepod.com is where you'll find our episode blog post that'll have links to all of the things you need to know about the show, such as the Google Forms for sending in match and news reviews. Search for the show on wherever you get your podcasts. We're there. Shout out to our friends, Rob's Toy Shop. Enter SLP discount on checkout Rob's Toy Shop on eBay and get 5% cash back on orders over £5, plus give 1% cash back to SLP. Little Warden, vital alerts for hidden issues. Head to littlewarden.com to see what they can do for you. And Sarah's Bookcase. Sarah sells books with access to over 3,000 titles from baby to young adult. There's something for everyone. Find out more on Facebook. And actually, Sarah always corrects me and says all adults can read the books. Yeah. Check out Facebook. There'll be links to all of our friends on the episode blog post as well. Neil, thank you for your company. I'm glad that the Zoom call has held out for much of the last hour or two. It's going to be an interesting edit for the first hour of the show, but there you go. As with every debutant, it tends to be a lengthy one because you've got new views for us to be sharing, which has been great to have. I hope you've enjoyed the experience.
I have, yes. It's a time of the season when you chuck a few newbies in, and hopefully I've done okay on my debut performance. So, yeah, thank you for having me. And yes, I won't wish you too much good luck for the season ahead, but maybe our paths might cross again sometime very soon.
Well, it might well do. I'm sure. I plan on going to the grand final, even if we're going out there. So we'll hopefully see each other. Excellent stuff. Well, thanks to you, Neil, and thanks to everyone for listening to your favourite rugby league podcast, the Super League Pod. We'll catch you soon.
Bye.